The B-29 was designed for one purpose, and that's to strike the heart of Japan. But was it truly the most advanced aircraft of the World War II? And why was this plane so loved by at least the United States? Well guys, in this video, I'll review the B-29 in detail, breaking down its revolutionary features and sharing the story of how this aircraft helped end the World War II. So guys, stick around because by the end, we'll decide together if the B-29 really lived up to its legendary status. And guys, just for a heads up on what's about to come, this video is split into two segments. First, I'll cover the revolutionary design of the B-29, and then we'll dive into its crucial role in the World War II. So feel free to skip through the sections of the video depending on the part that suits your interest, but I will encourage everyone to watch through to the end. So guys, without any further ado, let's get started. The B-29, being the largest bomber of the World War II, had a wingspan of 141 feet 3 inches, and that's approximately 43.5 meters, and with a length of 99 feet. And this bomber could carry an incredible 20,000 pounds of bomb on shorter missions, and that's twice the payload of earlier bombers like the B-17 Superfortress and the B-24 Liberator. And for longer range missions, the B-29 would trade some of those payload for extra fuel, enabling it to reach thousands of miles away. Guys, I think I kind of said something like the B-29 being a flying marvel is time. Oh guys, that wasn't a lie, because imagine being a crew member on a mission thousands of feet above enemy territory in a pressurized cabin without having to worry about being shot by an enemy plane. Well, that feeling of being an alpha in the sky was what the bomber actually brought to the table. And guys, it might not feel like anything right now because the world of aviation has totally changed. But imagine then as of World War II, this was actually a very big change. And with its pressurized cabin, the B-29 was able to reach an altitude of 31,850 feet, making it difficult to be shot down by an anti-aircraft like those being operated by the Japanese. So striking Japan wasn't a problem to the crew members, thanks to those engineers who worked for Boeing as at that time. So working as a crew member in the bomber wasn't a problem because the pressurization also helped reduce fatigue during those long-range missions, allowing the crew to work in a stable and a more controlled environment. Also, the pressurization provided more comfort as compared to earlier bombers like the B-17 Flying Fortress, where crew members had to endure freezing temperatures at high altitude, or even put on an oxygen mask when flying high altitude missions. So with pressurized cabin, the B-29 was able to handle longer and more effective missions better than any other bomber of its time. And speaking of a comfortable environment, the bomber came with more advanced features aside pressurized cabins. The bomber featured a cabin air conditioning just like the Boeing 247, and I don't know, but I feel like it was the first bomber to utilize this feature. And it was also spacious, like the cabin layout was spacious, which was essential for longer range missions as it provided more comfort for crew members, unlike the B-17 and the B-24 Liberator, which had cramped designs. Alongside the air conditioning, the bomber also featured heated interiors to keep the crew members warm in high altitude missions. Now looking at the cockpit, which featured a large rounded windows, providing excellent visibility for the pilot. The bomber was also outfitted with advanced avionics and instrumentation for its time, like an autopilot system and advanced navigation tools. Boeing engineers, having its pilots and crew members in mind, also designed amenities like padded seats, insulation to reduce noise, and a better lighting, making the environment more conducive for longer missions. Inside the cabin, a tunnel system was connected to the front and rear pressurized sections, allowing the crew to move between compartments without being exposed to the unpressurized bomb bay. Speaking of compartments, the B-29 Superfortress came with three compartments. The pilot, the co-pilot, the engineer, the radio operator, and the navigator were up in the front part. The gunners were positioned in the mid-fuselage pressurized area, and finally, the third gunner was located in the third pressurized compartment. The B-29 was also the first bomber where technology reduced crew workload significantly, and this is because it featured what is known as the CFC, and that's the Central Fire Control System, which was an advanced fire control system designed to manage the B-29's defensive weapons. Speaking of defensive weapons, the B-29 had 5 remote-controlled gun turrets, and what this thing does is that the CFC gunner, which is located in the pressurized compartments near the center of the fuselage, could operate and coordinate fire from multiple turrets using a periscopic sighting system. So what the CFC does was that it made the B-29 had more precise targeting of enemy fighters. So the CFC gunner was like the brain of the B-29's defensive firepower, because he's operating multiple turrets from a single location using some of the most advanced tech of the 1940s. The B-29 was also the first bomber to utilize radar for precise targeting and bombing. Trust me, this was a plus mark for the bomber. Now speaking of gun turrets, the B-29 was equipped with 5 defensive turrets, 4 with 50 caliber machine guns, and 1 with a 20mm cannon. And we already know that these turrets were operated remotely rather than requiring gunners to be physically stationed at its position. Also, each gunner was able to control more than one turret for redundancy purposes, except for the tail gunner, who only operated each station. I guess this was a clever defense mechanism against attacks from the rear, since the tail gunner only operated each station. And I know that some of us might be asking why the B-29 still required gunners mounted at each stations, even though the CFC gunner could control all the turrets. Well, simple answer: redundancy purposes. So imagine that the central system failed or was damaged in combat. Individual gunners could take over their turret controls directly. And also, if there are multiple attacks at once, let's say the enemy fighters didn't attack just from one direction, the CFC gunner mainly controlled the upper turret, while the tail gunner covered the rear. The left-right side gunners, also known as the waist gunners, could assist from the flank, and the nose gunner or bombardier sometimes operated the chin turret. So in short, each station had its own gunner, but the turrets were linked through a clever electrical system that allowed one gunner to control more than one turret when needed. So you can as well call the CFC gunner the commander of the turret network. So now, speaking of performance, we'll take a look at the bomber's engines. The B-29's Wright RU-3350 duplex Cyclone engines were engineering powerhouses with 18 air-cooled cylinders. Each engine generated 22,200 horsepower, propelling the bomber to a top speed of 357 miles per hour and a maximum range of 5,830 miles under ideal conditions. While this fell short of the Army's ambitious 400 miles per hour goal, it was still a remarkable feat for its time. But this power came at a cost. The engines had a notorious flaw, and that's overheating of the rear cylinders, which could spark devastating fires. The magnesium alloy crankcase, which was like the main body of the engine, burned so intensely that it could melt through the wing structures in seconds, and while the B-29 could stay airborne on just 2 engines, losing one during takeoff was often catastrophic. One tragic example was better flight test that claimed the lives of the entire crew, including Eddie Allen, which was Boeing's chief test pilot. This was actually a harsh reminder of the risks taken to bring these revolutionary aircraft to life. In order to solve this problem, and that's the overheating of the engines, The mechanics worked tirelessly to keep the engines running. Just imagine this: they had to replace every five cylinders every 25 hours and swapping out the entire engine after just 75 hours of flight. But this problem was later solved after the World War. The engines were upgraded to produce 3,700 horsepower per engine for some of the B-29 variants like the D-50 Superfortress and the C-97 Stratofortress. But I wouldn't actually blame Boeing for this problem because this aircraft was flown without a prototype and its bugs had to be fixed on the production line. So this brings us to the second and final part of the video, where we briefly explore the B-29's role in the World War II and why this aircraft earned so much respect and admiration from the American people. In the final years of World War II, Japan was heavily fortified. Its cities, its factories, even its spirits were all heavily fortified. But the United States needed a weapon that could reach far, hit hard, and make a statement. And the B-29 Superfortress was the answer. With a pressurized cabin, cutting-edge remote-controlled turrets, and a massive bomb load of 20,000 pounds, the B-29 wasn't just another bomber. It was a flying fortress with a mission. On the 6th of August 1945, a single B-29 named Enola Gay, which was piloted by Colonel Paul W. Tibbets, soared through the skies of Hiroshima. Inside its belly was a bomb unlike any the world had ever seen. With a flash of light and a deafening roar, the course of history changed forever. And just 3 days later, another B-29 named Bosca dropped the second atomic bomb called Fat Man on Nagasaki. In just 2 missions, the B-29 brought a brutal war closer to its end, forcing Japan to surrender and saving what could have been millions more lives if an invasion had taken place. And this is why Americans didn't just like the B-29. They respected it, they admired it, and even loved it. It was a machine that reached the heart of Japan and helped end a global war. So guys, if you enjoyed this video and learned something new, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. We'll be diving into another legendary bomber, and that's the B-17 Flying Fortress. Thank you and see you soon.